Shotgun Shan. Wrestle Kingdom 9 is now in the books. We're about almost 48 hours removed from it. What an event, my friend.
I have to agree with you right there. What a great way to start off this year with a fresh, not a new product, but certainly a new product from North America, and certainly presented in a new way. I know that you had mentioned to me before I saw it. First of all, we had planned to watch this together, but due to some the ice storm and some of the weather issues we had, we didn't manage doing that. We had to watch it separately. And you watched it before me and said it was one of the best, if not the best, one of the best cards in 10 years. I thought, oh, he's just excited. When I watched it, I have to agree. And that's even with some of the challenges that they faced, which we'll get into as we go on. But even with all those challenges, they put together a card that was top to bottom, head and shoulders above anything we've seen recently. In the last 5-10 years, I'd have to agree with you, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a backstory here, and I want to tell it, and there's time right now, because anybody that saw Raw last night understands we're really not going to probably even address the show. It was a resounding flop. From a show that was supposed to have the big angle and supposed to be this, big start to 2015 for the company, this is what we have in store. My God. But thank God we have New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we may be talking about this show for a month. If WWE's that bad, we may still revisit this show, because it was that good. And I knew when I was texting you guys, when I was inboxing you guys and saying, this is one of the best shows you'll ever see, that you guys were going to sort of slightly roll your eyes and think this guy is such a mark for New Japan, and he's going to say that anyway. Now that you've seen it, again, we'll pick your brain on it. But there's a big backstory, because, as you said, the weather was absolute garbage. It's been perfect for a month, not a flake of snow. And, of course, now that it's Wrestle Kingdom weekend, it has to become a freezing rain. It has to become, this awful driving conditions. And, I was not going to be graced with the presence of Shotgun Shan or Ernest Matthews. And I knew this because it was, 2 a.m. or so. And I'm still up. And I'm thinking, these guys aren't going to make it. This is my one opportunity to watch this on pay-per-view live. So, yes, I watched the show live, wow. 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. I was about 15 minutes late for work, and it was well worth it. But this is really, I got to put this over, man, because this is an experience I will never forget. Watching the show 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., and I had Twitter, I'd be refreshing it every 5 minutes. And I'm not even really a Twitter guy. But I was on the new Wrestling Audio Revolution Twitter. Check it out, Warzone 2008, at Warzone 2008. And that's, of course, the year that this show started. But I'm on Twitter, Shan. And I'm thinking, man, I don't even know if anyone's really going to be doing... I was worried about, how many people would actually watch this live. 2 a.m., on this coast anyway, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Wrestlers, people like MVP, people like Chris Sabin, people like basically anyone that isn't under contract to WWE, because of course they're watching but they can't put it over. Everyone is awake. All the wrestling journalists are tweeting every 5 minutes or so. The Brian Alvarez's, the Dave Meltzers. Everyone is awake until 6 a.m. watching this wrestling show broadcasted live from Tokyo. And a resounding, thumbs up. Everybody's marking out. The wrestlers are marking out. MVP's giving little insights because he spent a lot of time in New Japan. So he's giving little insights to guys. It was an experience I'll never forget. And it was almost as much fun as actually watching the show itself, was just watching Twitter and seeing how many people are awake watching this thing. And again, what does that say? And how starved are we for a wrestling product like this that people would do that? I had to do it. This is my one opportunity. We don't even know that we'll get another one. The way it feels right now, I don't know, you'd probably agree, the buzz definitely seemed big. I certainly hope that translates into buys. But, I mean, again, it's one of those things, too, where now the buzz is so big that if you didn't see it, hopefully you will go and buy the replay.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I would hope that there's a shift coming out of this. If not, it's certainly no fault of theirs, because the product was so polished, so strong, And like, do you want? Can I launch into my analysis of the show now, or is there?
Yeah, I would love to take it through the card here, and
Yeah.
again, it was an experience I won't forget. That whole thing of being on Twitter and seeing how many people and how many people are watching this thing and just loving it.
Oh, yeah.
But what we did not see in North America was they had the New Japan Rumble, and from what I'm hearing, we didn't miss very much at all.
Okay.
Yuji Nagata won the New Japan Rumble. It's basically like a Royal Rumble, except you can also pin and submit. It had a lot of legends. The Great Kabuki was in this match.
Wow.
A lot of different legends. Fujiwara also showed up. And again, it was basically the dark match. It was on New Japan World. And one thing, too, that before we get into sort of just the results of it, I was really amazed at how much they really tailored this show to the North American pay-per-view thing. Because, again, that's not where their business is. And as much as like they're wanting to expand, their bread and butter is Japan. And if you've ever seen Wrestle Kingdom, just the regular Wrestle Kingdom, not the one that was broadcast this year in North America, I mean, it's always kind of rushed. It's always kind of stacked, but it's like 5 hours. You know what I mean? And they do take time. They have an intermission. They have like musical performances. This was bam, 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 match, match, match. And even JR, had to put it over. And we can spend some time putting over the commentary. But just to get into the opener, I think everybody had a little bit of a freak out, too, when they saw the intro and the video package was in Japanese. Did you have that moment where you thought, fuck, I think I have the wrong version?
I was going to save this for later, but I'll say that one of the issues that I think they're going to have to deal with going forward, and it wasn't any fault of theirs, is I think when they are broadcasting this out into North America, they need to take into account, exactly as you said, the little promo packages, people's interviews. I think JR and Matt Stryker did an admirable job of trying to kind of translate the thoughts and the feelings of what were going on. But yeah, that is a feeling that I had, not just at the beginning, but throughout when guys were doing interviews, when they ran that really great package near the end for Tanahashi. I was like, man, I wish I could understand this. So I think that's something that they're going to have to address going forward. But yeah, that it was a little bit jolting, and certainly it felt good to hear JR and Stryker in there doing their thing. But who are fantastic, by the way. I mean, maybe before we get into the card, just if I could just say what I thought about the overall presentation before we get into the matches.
Go for it, man.
Those two guys, considering the pressure they were under in a completely new environment, not just a new environment for them, but trying to present a new environment to an entirely new audience, I think proved themselves to be, one of the best two-man duos ever. I love both of them individually. I was always a big Matt Stryker fan simply because he was, I always felt, a younger version of JR in that he didn't say things if they weren't relevant, which is the complete opposite to the way WWE's commentary is that they rarely ever say anything relevant. And so putting those two guys together, it was pretty magical. I mean, they stumbled a few times, and that was to be expected. But overall, they made it accessible and presentable. Again, as I said, I think they're going to have to face that next hurdle of making the entire show translated into English in one way or another, whether it's just somebody feeding them information in the earpiece or someone doing voiceover for some of these translations. And one thing I do have to say, and it may not have been their fault, it may have been mine, but I think they're going to have to work on their pronunciation of the names, because one of my biggest problems, being not necessarily a New Japan fan, but certainly for the first time really delving into the entire roster instead of select matches, is I really want to know these guys' names, and I want to know how to say them, because my biggest fear is coming on this show and coming across like Art Donovan from the King of the Ring commentary and go, who's that guy with the thing on his head? So I want to know exactly how to say different people's names. There were a few times when I noticed that they pronounced names, they didn't pronounce them consistently, so I was kind of stuck wondering exactly how to say the guy's name. But other than that, I think they did a fantastic job, and you really felt like they were invested. JR made a lot of comments about being glad to be there and really being excited about it, and so did Stryker. And it really came across. It wasn't just lip service,
Oh, no, trust me when I say, and again, I mentioned that, everybody was awake and everybody was tweeting. It was also wrestlers that were backstage. It was Carl Anderson. It was JR commenting like in those little packages. And I'll give my thoughts on everything you just said. You said a bunch of really good stuff. But yeah, these guys had a ball. JR had the time of his life, and I feel so good. that this worked out the way it did. Now, again, you said, of course, there were a few little stumbles. JR, first of all, is an aging gentleman.
Yeah.
He's had health problems. And let's face it, he's out of practice. It's not like he's been doing this on the regular anymore. And as much as he's the greatest of all time and he's the natural and all that stuff, I mean, again, you have to have your repetitions to be sharp with anything. And I think obviously there were times when he kind of felt like he was losing his train of thought, maybe not really, but just, he was tentative a little bit about his information. And here's the reason why. These guys had to study for this. This was not instinctual. Okay, the actual storytelling of a match and the emotion, that is instinctual for JR. Nobody can do it better. Matt Stryker did a great job. But the instinctual knowledge of this product and this history wasn't there. It wasn't there instinctually. So they were really they had to study for it and they needed their notes for it. And that's, when you heard the ums and ahs, it was them thinking, okay, am I saying the right thing here? Because my one problem with Matt Stryker, not the performance he did, but just going into it, and when I heard he was the guy, like you say, he provides a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, not all of it's true. And he kind of just goes into fantasy world a little bit with a lot of his information. And if you're not Google searching it, chances are nobody's going to know that. But it's like certain things he would say, in WWE, even in Lucha Underground, are just completely ridiculous. But at the same time, like you say, he does at least provide a lot. And a lot of it is true. With this one, it was just simple mistakes. It was stuff like JR saying that Kota Ibushi, was this young kid that, had already been a junior tag champion. He's also been a junior heavyweight champion 4 times. But I mean, that's just I can look past that because these guys had to study for this and they were trying to take in a lot of information. I mean, for you and I, we've been sort of following this now probably the better part of a year, but for us, it's not instinctual yet. And so for them, I mean, they had to go out there and call the product, and it's one of those things you just got to get comfortable with it, and you would need more time and a year or two to really soak it all in, and they didn't have that time. But again, like you say, they did a great, great job. And Matt Stryker really silenced the critics because, truthfully, I thought it would be Matt Stryker talking way too much and going kind of into whatever land, and JR having to be bring them back. I actually found there were certain times in the show where it was the opposite, where JR might have been going a little bit into some irrelevant territory, and Matt Stryker would be like, okay, back to the action here. They did a great job. It was money matches, especially the last 3, which we will get into. But it was money matches called as money matches by money announcers, and we have not heard that in so long.
That was the thing, really. I mean, before we get into the individual performances, on the overall performance, and I think I've said this before about New Japan, but when you sit down and you watch a New Japan broadcast in its entirety, not just individual matches, when you sit down and you watch the way it's presented as a whole, the glaring difference between New Japan and WWE is that you get the sense when you watch New Japan that everyone on that roster is performing to the highest of their ability. They're showing you everything they've got on that day. And there's no balancing this out so that you don't overshadow the guy above you or that the pecking order isn't disturbed. Everybody's performing at the highest level. They've all got their nitro turned on and they're kind of going for broke. And in this show, certainly more than any other, everyone seemed to pull out a fantastic performance. You could isolate the worst match on the card, which I don't even know what that would be because I enjoyed pretty much all of them. You could sit down and watch it and really see the quality in it. That's really what makes it such a strong show. And when you combine that with the enthusiasm and the passion that you had in the commentary, it just came across as a gigantic, as just a huge success, just marvelous. I had such a great time watching it.
And I don't know if people know this, maybe they do. I don't know if you even know this, but one of the people that was kind of in the running to take Matt Stryker's position was Dave Meltzer. And at the time, I thought, I know people are going to say that Stryker's a better commentator than Dave because Dave's not a commentator, but he's obviously a good talker. If anyone, he does the radio shows multiple times a week and stuff. And there is nobody on the planet that would have an instinctual knowledge of this product more than Dave. He doesn't have to do any research. He doesn't have to do anything because he is a human encyclopedia, especially of Japanese wrestling. So to have him right there beside JR, basically just as the encyclopedia to lean on for any information, I thought it would have been great. And at the time, I thought it would have been a much better choice than Stryker. But at the end of the day, I think that Stryker added this familiarity to new people, because this is what people have to understand. A lot of new fans of New Japan coming out of this weekend. People that have never seen it, that have only heard about it, that have heard the hype, and thought, hey, JR is commentating, I might as well check it out. And they are fans now. And again, we'll talk about what I was reading, because a lot of the people on Twitter, too, were people that have never seen it. So that was kind of an exciting moment for me to watch these people reacting for the very first time to this product and some certain characters. But anyway, we can get into the show, but I mean, so much to say. And actually, one final thing, because you mentioned the packages. To me, this is, again, I agree with you 100%, but it's such a simple thing. All that those packages needed was English subtitles, period. Because I love the fact that it opened like a real New Japan pay-per-view. And Jarrett has done interviews even since the pay-per-view now, just like in the last day or so, where he said it was intentional. He wanted this show because it was a New Japan pay-per-view. He didn't want it to be a Global Force-looking thing. He wanted it to be New Japan with English commentary. And it was. And one thing that he did that I thought was really smart just from a financial standpoint for the first show, and again, moving forward, these are little things we need to tweak. The fact that he didn't, like JR and Stryker never actually physically appeared on TV. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
And essentially what you got was the exact same feed, because I had the New Japan World also on my computer, sort of just checking out what would be the differences. It was the exact same. So Jarrett did not pay the money to have the extra cameras to get the shots of JR and Stryker. He didn't pay the extra money to put together the big packages of JR and Stryker. He just let it be what it is and put their commentary over it. The audio, I thought, was great. I was worried that maybe that it would be, kind of low-budget audio based on some of their videos that they put out. It was great. The acoustics of the audience was phenomenal. You didn't just hear this wall of sound. You heard the individual oohs and ahs and the girls screaming and stuff. So anyways, again, simple tweaks for the future. Maybe some packages, do some pre-tapes with JR and Stryker explaining a few things. As far as the Japanese promos, I thought all they needed was English subtitles, man. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. They needed something, but yeah, they definitely, subtitles would have done it.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get into the show. Again, Yuji Nagata won the New Japan Rumble. And the opener of the actual pay-per-view, Red Dragon versus Young Bucks versus Forever Hooligans versus Time Splitters.
What a way to start. Oh, my God. That was fantastic. And it had my boy Alex Shelley in there, which always makes you happy to see Alex. But here's the other thing. Everybody was presented like a star as they came out. I mean, the Bucks looked like stars. Everybody came out looking like a big deal. And that's really what they need to do. I mean, there were comments, and I'm sure you caught them, little sort of offhanded references to WWE. Certainly when they were talking about the IC title being as important as the world title. And JR says, well, why wouldn't you make your titles important? And you got that impression that he was. But as you watched it, you really saw that they weren't afraid to make the small guys stars or the undercard stars. It was a whole show of stars. It was fantastic. But that match blew me away. And I love those kind of really fast-paced multiple tag team matches that they do in New Japan, and this one didn't disappoint.
Absolutely not. And, we've put over the Time Splitters on the show before, obviously. We've put over the Bucks, obviously. And we can sort of talk about a few of the spots in this match. But, Red Dragon, I thought, came off incredible. And one of the other refreshing things, just to sort of bring it to the commentary again, it wasn't treating us like idiots. At no point did I feel like I was being treated like an idiot. Because they referenced Ring of Honor, they referenced Lucha Underground, they referenced WWE, they referenced everybody. And it was like, why is wrestling not like this? Why do we settle for this weird little isolated, quote-unquote, universe where nothing else exists? So anyway, we'll continue to talk about that because I thought that was an ongoing thing in the show that, for the first time we're being treated like wrestling fans that actually have a clue. We're not just familiar with one product. We don't have the blinders up. We know the wrestling business and don't treat us like dummies, Yeah.
Again, it was that sense of here's everything we've got and pick what you like. Unlike WWE, which here's what we're going to give you and here's what you're going to like. And if you don't like it, well, don't get your hopes up that what you do like is going to happen. With New Japan, it was just here's what we got, love it, follow it, embrace it, do whatever it is that appeals to you, get into it. So.
Yeah, so we saw the North American, I don't know if it is the North American pay-per-view debut, but definitely of this version. The Meltzer Driver, which Matt Stryker did call the Meltzer Driver, and they put a little twist on it this time. a little flip. So they pulled out something a little special for the Wrestle Kingdom Tokyo show. They did their big move and they put a twist on it. That's like the coolest thing ever when you can do that. You know what I mean? The double LOD spot where they have both the Bucks on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And I forget who it was that came off the top. I think it was one of the hooligans. I think it was Rocky, actually, where he came off the top with the double clothesline. The Bucks do a backflip and land on their feet and give a super kick. There was super kicks all over this match. Great match. Meltzer driver with a twist. How can you complain? But Red Dragon, the ROH and IWGP, the global champions, as Matt Stryker referenced, did end up going over in this match. And I think that's cool because that means more ROH involvement in the company.
Yeah, for sure. So
anyways, this is where me and Sean Cunningham differed a little bit, and I think he's being a bit of a baby. But basically the way that especially these Wrestle Kingdom shows go, and especially this version being trimmed down an hour, they kind of do rush in a way through things, but it's kind of cool to me. It's like you don't have any time to breathe. It's just bang, bang, bang. Now, this next match, if you were going to talk about the worst match, yes, it was the worst match on the show. With that said, it was 5 minutes, Sean. It was 5 minutes long, and it had a purpose. And I mean, you got in there, nobody looked bad. Tenzon needs to retire, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like anybody embarrassed themselves. It was a 5-minute match. Hanma's like this undercard guy that's really, really over with the fans. And again, this is another thing about New Japan, is like you have a guy like Hanma. He's like who would he be? Kofi Kingston or somebody like that. He's somebody that's pretty low. He loses to anybody of any importance. But the fans still love the shit out of him. And he's not buried. He never wins. And so when he got the big win here in this match, it was a 6-man and he got the win on Takahashi. But I mean, it was this moment, and you could tell with the crowd, they popped huge. So it was this fun little 5-minute match. Nobody looked bad. I thought Jarrett actually looked pretty good, considering he doesn't really wrestle anymore very much. And again, match is over, and we're on to the next. Like
it had its purpose. They brought them in. They did their thing. They got it out. They got, it was over before you got tired of it.
Exactly. That's my point. It's like he kind of said that it killed the momentum, and I'm just like, dude, it was 5 minutes. And again, you don't know the stories, and that's fine. And JR and Stryker didn't really put this over. But Hanma's been getting beat down by the Bullet Club for like a year. So this was a big win that he got a pin over one of the Bullet Club guys. And as simple as that is, and in WWE that would never, ever happen, but it did in New Japan. And again, they just know what they're doing with the entire top to bottom. They know what they're doing. And you said the guys are able to go out there and do what they do. Yes, they're given 5 minutes, but they'll make the most out of that 5 minutes. Opener, given 12 minutes. They made the most out of that 12 minutes. So It's just one of those things. Now, the next match, again, it was another one of these rushed multiple-man matches, but I thought it was cool that you got to see the return for the North Americans that are just watching for the first time. I think this match was very important because you had Taka out there as the manager of Suzuki Gun, and Suzuki Gun is, these members anyway, is Shelton Benjamin, Takahashi, Lance Archer, and Davey Boy Smith Jr. So I thought it was cool that you had Benjamin, Archer, and Smith sort of back on North American pay-per-view. I think a lot of people were like, cool, we've kind of missed these guys,
Oh yeah, for sure. Again, they were really smart in the way that they would give you a little bit of familiarity along the way. Here, I really think they stacked this card up, saying that at this point we're going to show you somebody that you know, so that we can bring you back and give you something to identify with before we launch you back into the strictly New Japan product. But again, it was another good match. It was another good match that did what it did. It was fast paced and it moved, and it wasn't. I mean, we've all seen those pay-per-views in WWE and even TNA where they just had too many guys on the card and they rushed through, and the entrances were longer than the match. That wasn't the case in any of these. I mean, when we say that they rushed them, they were fast-paced matches and they moved along quickly, but they were still, I thought, really enjoyable.
Yeah, so it was Toriyano Marufuji, Naomichi Marufuji, and Shane Haste is the other guy, and Mikey Nichols. And those are all Noah guys. Again, we talk about the interpromotional nature of New Japan. This is another one of their working relationships with Noah. And supposedly this relationship's really going to start to heat up because they're going to start sending some of their guys down. Some of the guys like, say, Yuji Nagata, somebody that maybe is getting a bit older and they don't have anything too much to do with him right now. They're going to start using, guys like that to send down. They're going to start sort of sending some of their young boys down to sort of develop them a little bit. So this is another cool relationship, and it's awesome that when they bring these other people in from other places, they're not afraid to put them over. And Marufuji and Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste, again, they're going to be basically involved moving forward. Marufuji's the GHC champion. That's the that's the Noah champion. And Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols are going to be, I guess, getting into a feud with Lance Archer and Davey Boy Smith Jr. So this made complete sense for them to come in and for them to go over. And this is going to, again, further this storyline. And like you say, even if it wasn't a great match, which I thought it was perfectly fine, it was over before you got tired of it. And that was an ongoing thing. And it's like, we've also seen these matches in WWE. You talked about the rushed ones, but we've also seen the ones that are involving people that don't really matter. Like, they're not a big part of the big picture, and they're given way too much time.
Yeah.
And it's just going on and on and on, and you're like, I don't care who wins this match. Just end it. And this definitely didn't have that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a long stretch there in WWE where you get a match that had Miz or Dolph Ziggler or Kofi Kingston or whatever that was just thrown together. You'd seen it a million times on free TV that had nothing to do with anything other than to just fill in some space. That definitely wasn't what we were seeing here. Everything had its purpose to move a story along.
So, so again, that match, no problem whatsoever with that. I want to see a lot more Marufuji. I love watching him in the ring. Shane Haste, Mikey Nichols, I thought both looked good. Toru Yanu's just got a funny gimmick, and probably people, that are new to this product don't have a clue why he's carrying a DVD down to the ring. Why this bleach blonde, greaseball, flab-bodied guy with these colorful tights is carrying a DVD all the time. And essentially, he's kind of like, another one of these undercard guys, sort of a job guy, but he still gets in somewhat big matches and still has, somewhat of a push in a way, in a weird way. He's not buried, but his gimmick is that he carries a bootleg DVD of himself around with all of his best matches. So he's putting himself over when he carries that DVD down to the ring. But he's always trying to sell the DVD, this underground bootleg Toru Yano best of DVD. That's a funny gimmick, man.
He's got such a funny face too. That guy just makes me laugh anytime I look at him. Oh my God, he's hilarious.
Anyway, so we got through these 3 matches, and it was like, 45 minutes in, and it was like, wow, this show's moving fast. This is where the show started cooking and smoking, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Minoru Suzuki versus Kazushi Sakuraba. I thought Jim Ross, first of all, did an unbelievable job putting over these two guys, their backstory, the fact that they're proteges of Carl Gotch and Billy Robinson. These are two guys from a different time. And people don't even really realize, especially with Suzuki, I think most people realize Sakuraba's like an MMA legend in the top 5 of all time. But Minoru Suzuki, I think a lot of people don't realize he was one of the very first mixed martial artists in the world. Obviously, MMA is something that started in Japan, was brought over here with the UFC and everything, but he was involved in some of the very first MMA promotions of all time. And this guy, what a character Minoru Suzuki is. First of all, got to put over the ring gear. Because, forever, this guy has had the black tights, the black boots, the black hair with the crazy things shaved into it, and the black towel. This guy comes down at Wrestle Kingdom in white boots, white tights, a white towel, and bleached white hair. And funny enough, I watched the New Year's Dash pay-per-view, or not pay-per-view, sorry, that was the show basically that's on New Japan World right now. Everybody needs to go and subscribe to this service. It's fantastic. But they basically have like the night after show on there already, and it's basically like the night after, WrestleMania Raw. So it was another big 3-hour show from New Japan that's already up. But very next night, Shan, he's back to black hair, black shoes, black tights, and a black towel. So one night only, he went all white. But I gotta ask you, man, like, what did you think of this? This was different than anything you will see on North American pay-per-view from any other brand. Unbelievable.
That's where they legitimately blur the line between the fantasy of wrestling and the reality of MMA, or, it was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, Suzuki's brutal anyway. He's fun to watch. I really like him. But this match in particular, there were points in it where I was concerned.
Absolutely.
I was really concerned. They were hitting each other so hard, and it was just mental. Yeah.
Especially for Sakuraba, because, he looked so broken walking down to the ring. Like, that guy has been through the ringer. And not only an MMA legend, but a Japanese wrestling legend as well. He's been involved in pro wrestling since the 90s and everything. So Sakuraba's a legend on both sides. But he's broken. And he came down to that ring, and I thought, oh, boy, this could be... Suzuki better have his working boots on tonight. And he usually does, but my God, this was just like... It's basically like essentially what they did, Shan, is they sat down with Gato, and Gato said, I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume. They sat down with Gato. Gato said, here's the finish. Let's do this for the finish. Go out there and fight until then. And that's what they did. It seemed like they were shooting on each other. Yes, they had a destination of where this match ended, but until then, they were going for broke, like you say. And again, like it was UWFI rules, which is only stopped by knockout, by submission, or ref stoppage. And Minoru Suzuki, the madman, the meanest man on the planet, I swear to God. Did that cool rear naked choke into the suplex and then really cinched in the choke. Sakuraba had no choice but to tap out. And Sakuraba really ate some nasty slaps in that match.
And some of the kicks, and just there were so many times I thought, this poor guy, he's dead. He's not walking out of here.
No. And I mean, JR loved that match. You could tell he loved Suzuki. Yeah. And obviously, he sometimes overuses the John Wayne reference, but when Suzuki's walking down the aisle with the ice pack on his arm, and then he just says, screw it, and he throws it away, and JR is like, oh yeah, he's John Wayne. I don't need that. I thought, man, this is awesome. This is a great night. So again, there was a UFC fight card earlier in the night too. This was a big night for people that are fans of both. And it was a really big card. It was Daniel Cormier versus John Jones. And there were people that watched both that were saying this was the best fight of the night from either show. This was the best fight. It was a better fight than any of the real fights, if that makes sense. So
I would agree. As far as I'm gonna reserve that till we talk about Ishii. But
that's the next match again.
Yeah, because
bam, bam, bam. Not even a video package in between these matches, folks.
Yeah.
The one guy's theme song fades out. The next match starts. Next theme starts.
Honestly, where you left off with Suzuki, with the Suzuki match, is where the Ishii match started, because these two guys were crazy too. Like, they just put the two most brutal, barbaric matches back to back. I love Ishii anyway. Now, before we go any further, this is where I have to say I had issues with the commentary about the pronunciation. Yeah. What is his opponent's last name pronounced? Is it Makabe or Makabe?
It's Makabe. Makabe, but it's not Toji, as JR said it. It's actually Togi. Makabe.
Makabe.
At least that's I'm not Japanese, but from the way I've always understood it, his pronunciation is Togi Makabe. And that's again, this is somebody that we've never, I don't think, ever watched a matchup together. I don't think I've really ever talked to you about him. But your first impressions of Togi?
Oh, he was fantastic. I had no idea he was going to win, to be honest, because I just think of Ishii as kind of unbreakable. But that match, though, you put those two together, they kept making references to Makabe being a big fan of Bruiser Brody. Yep. And you really saw it going in. As they said it, I was like, wow, he's really modeled himself after that kind of barbaric character. And this was really, they talk about the immovable force, or the irresistible force and the immovable object. This literally was. When these two guys came head to head, there were explosions. Like, I can't imagine the damage they must have done to each other in a wrestling match. By the time that was over, it was some of the headbutts and the kicks, and oh my God,
the lariat offs. Like, you've seen punches, you've seen punch off, you've seen the forearm thing pretty much in every New Japan match, the forearm trading. You've seen Ishii do the cool forearm trading where he goes bam, 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 bam with both elbows. But I mean, this was guys standing there right in front of each other, giving each other standing lariats, and just like first guy to go down is the the wussy basically. And Togi is such a throwback, man. He's he again, like you mentioned, the Bruiser Brody thing. JR got a little confused there at the end with the King Kong Bundy knee drop, I think he said, which Striker had to correct him and say, King Kong Brody knee drop, right. Not the King Kong Bundy knee drop, because I don't think Bundy ever did the knee drop from the top.
I would think not. That would have been.
Togi's also interesting. He's a guy that reinvented himself, because his whole career, the first part of his career was him as a junior. He was a much smaller guy and did a lot more not high flying, but again that junior style. And then he's now transferred into this old school throwback, mean, chain wearing Bruiser Brody type of throwback. So I mean, you just look at his face and you're like, oh, this guy, he doesn't look too smart, but my God, does he look tough. And this was two tough guys for the never open weight title, which is, I like to call the hard ass title. This is the title held by the hard asses. And this was a hard ass match, man. And again, like you say, I mean, I had figured Ishii moves forward. The way I read this title change is, because Ishii's super over. And he's a guy that's, I think they have a lot of plans for, even though he's kind of getting a little older too. But I think that this was one of those situations where a title's being taken off so that he can move up to something bigger.
Yeah, I got that feeling too, that this wasn't really a drop for Ishii. This was just a shift over to something else, that he was moving on.
So another match that you could tell JR just loved.
Oh, yeah.
Next match, IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship match. Okay, go ahead.
Can I make my comment here? Because this is one that struck me.
Okay.
Two things about this match. One, Kenny Omega's finisher is awesome.
Yes.
Second, Kenny Omega's hair is possibly the most infuriating thing I've actually visually seen in my life.
Good.
As I saw it, I started to feel this incomprehensible and unexplainable rage building inside of me. If I didn't look away for a moment, I was going to just break my TV. It was horrible.
Oh, he's the best. He's the best. Oh, my God. And that's so great that a guy that talented can actually piss you off that much. And that goes to show he knows what he's doing. Much like the Young Bucks, and I think people sort of read them the wrong way for a long time and thought, these guys, they don't even realize how geeky they look and how they look like this, low rent Rock and Roll Express or Hardy Boys. They know that they come across that way, and they know that it gets heat. Kenny Omega, he sprayed his hair black and white or whatever the hell that crap was.
You don't know what it was.
Oh my God.
It's like a seagull had taken a dump on his head as he went over. It was
unbelievable. But his whole, he really played a comedic character for a long time. And obviously, him and Kota Ibushi, they come from the DDT promotion, which is a fun promotion, but it's the complete opposite of New Japan. It is like comedy. Like you've seen, Kota Ibushi wrestles the blow-up doll.
Yeah.
Kenny Omega, he's become an internet star based on this match that he had with a 9-year-old Japanese girl. And this is something people need to see. And before you do, I need to sort of just reference quickly that, because I think it's a kind of a shocking thing to people, and they think this is child exploitation. Quickly, just to tell you the story on that one. Have you ever seen it, Shan?
I have not seen it, but I've heard about it.
Kenny Omega versus the 9-year-old girl, Haruki. Okay. Now, what happened is, in Japan, wrestling's respected. It's as you can tell by the fans. They're not they're high class people, and they will do things with wrestlers where they bring them into schools and stuff like that. So essentially, what happened is they had how in Canada we have track and field day, right? Well, in Japan they had this thing where it was they were gonna do for the younger kids a gymnastics day where you get to learn gymnastics, and then for the older kids you get to learn professional wrestling. And Kenny Omega was your teacher. So essentially what happened is the older kids are learning the wrestling in the morning with Kenny Omega, and he's teaching them just little things, safe, basic stuff. And there's this young girl that was, too young for wrestling. She would have been in the gymnastics, but she's not participating in the gymnastics, and she's kind of acting shy and just kind of hovering around. And they could tell she was a little anxious, a little not particularly having fun. So they came over and they're like, what's the matter, Haruki? Why aren't you doing your gymnastics? And she said, I want to be a pro wrestler. And so, they felt so bad that this was such a dream of hers that she wanted to do wrestling and not gymnastics that they said, okay, you know what? We'll let you try it. So Kenny went in there and he did stuff with her, and she was a natural, and obviously was very nervous about having a match with a 9-year-old girl and hurting her. And it's probably the most nerve-wracking experience of his life. But essentially what happened is they had this awesome match for the school, in front of the school, and DDT said, you know what, do you think that they might be interested in having her come and do that match here? And sure enough, they practiced the match. Kenny and Haruki practiced for a couple weeks or a month or whatever, and they went and they did the same match they'd done in front of the school for this DDT crowd, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So everybody check it out. And again, don't look at it and think, this girl's being exploited or whatever. This is a girl living her dream, and Kenny Omega is a pro, and he's definitely taking care of this girl. And just to see this 9-year-old with all these instincts is awesome. So check that out. But anyway, moving forward into this match, I've said for a long time now, at least for the last few months, that Taguchi is a great wrestler. Obviously has a lot of shades of Eddie Guerrero. I don't know if you kind of picked that up from Taguchi, the funky weapon. Just watch the way he walks through the ring. Watch the color scheme of his tights and his boots, everything. This guy really loves Eddie and really modeled himself after him. But with that said, he's getting a little older. The junior heavyweight division really is a young person's division. You got to be young, you got to be fast. That's what people expect. And Taguchi has taken the pace down a little bit, so it's kind of been a little bit disappointing. Kenny, obviously, what do you think of him in the ring, first of all?
Kenny, as I said, Kenny's great in the ring. He's fun. He's
fast.
fast. He's
crisp.
innovative. His moves are really cool. Yeah, I have no problem. If I could just not have to look at his hair, I'd be all right. But
Yeah, so Kenny, I'd been saying, like, when they said that he was going to be, he's now officially, like, signed full-time with New Japan. So he's a full-time guy now in the Bullet Club. But when they said that he was going to be challenging for that belt, I thought, this is the guy to take it back to what this division's supposed to be. It's supposed to be young, fast, innovative shit, and Taguchi's just not cutting it in that division. He's still great, just not in that division. So, Kenny's got this new gimmick, Kenny the Cleaner. Now, it's not a Duke the Dumpster Drosy gimmick. It's like a mafia type of cleaner. He's the he's the executioner. And he's coming with this new post-apocalyptic Mad Max gimmick. Great entrance, I thought. And again, this guy's got it. And yes, his hair infuriates people, which is why, he makes a great heel. But the match, yeah, you're giving this one a thumbs up as well?
Oh, of course. I can't not give it a thumbs up. It was fantastic.
Yeah, like this wasn't Kota Ibushi Ricochet, obviously.
No.
This wasn't that kind of a match. But I mean, the good thing about Kenny winning that belt now is, again, he can now start challenging against some of those other, or fighting against some of those other guys, the faster guys, the younger guys, the Kushidas, whoever. There's a lot of fresh matches. So anyway, really like that. Kenny Omega wins the junior title. Again, I think everyone pretty much expected that for all the reasons I just said. Taguchi's just not the right choice right now, so they've moved on. But funky weapon was said by JR. Those words did come out. And yes, everybody, that is a nickname for his penis. The funky weapon. Now, the next match I think falls into the same category as some of the second and third match. It was not very long. And I mean, it was again, not one of the more important matches on the show, but I still thought it was really good. Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows versus Katsuyori Shibata and Haruki Goto, who are definitely have been for a while now my favorite heavyweight tag champion or tag team in the world, really. So anyways, Shibata and Goto go over in this match. What was your opinion of this?
I like both those guys going in.
Yeah, me too.
I love their look. I love their deal. They look different than everybody else for some reason. There's something kind of cartoony and larger than life about the two of them. I love their style. I loved watching them sit cross-legged in the ring with put the title belts on each other and then sit cross-legged in the ring at the end, instead of the usual walking around with your arms in the air celebrating thing. I just thought they were cool. They're cool, nasty. They seem legit. And they're, great tag team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought JR did a great job of telling the story, and it's a story that I think everyone can relate to. It's two guys that were best friends in high school that have now gone on, and obviously they've gone some different paths in life. Shibata, had come up. He came up in the New Japan Dojo, the same class as Nakamura and Tanahashi. So they were like the three musketeers of that era, of that, the dojo graduates of that time. Shibata had a little bit of a run in New Japan and then decided he wanted to go and, pursue an MMA career, and he did. And then he's now come back. And, they just told a great story of these two guys that were best friends in high school that have now gone on and now won the titles. And, Carl Anderson, man, he's one of those guys, people look at him and they just think he's kind of, he doesn't really have a great body, kind of just has a bald head and a beard, and he kind of just has a look that I think we've seen, and it's kind of generic. This guy's a great, great, great wrestler, just a great worker. And Doc Gallows, I didn't think he embarrassed himself at all. I thought he was 100% passable as a big man wrestler. But again, Anderson is a star to me. Great promo. He looks like Mike Bullard. He kind of has a Mike Bullard sense of humor. Coming down to the ring and saying, I'm not nervous at all, into the camera. How's everybody at home? I'm not nervous at all. Too sweet me, too sweet me, too sweet me, too sweet me. This guy's funny, and he's a great wrestler. So again, he's one of those guys you look at him and you think, am I right about that? You look at him physically and you think, well, he's probably not that great. But then you see him in the ring and he's actually really solid, Oh,
he is. He's solid against anybody, but particularly in this matchup, I think that the two teams balanced off each other so well. So I have no issues with Anderson or Gallows. I thought it was the thing that I noticed so much in New Japan is that they use people for what they're meant to do, and they use them to the top of their ability. And with these two guys, they did it again. They were the big kind of, the big
foreigner team,
foreigner guys in there against these two best friends pursuing their dream, and it was fantastic. A great match all the way around.
Yeah, they sort of fall into that sort of Brody and Hanson tag team, or the Terry Gordy and Dr. Death. Those teams that went to Japan as these big badass foreigners, and they did great. So Yeah, really didn't have any problem with that match. My only problem with this show at this point, I can't find any time to take a pee break. Because this match would have been the pee break, and it was really quite good. But anyways, this is where the show went up a notch and stayed there. AJ Styles versus Tetsuya Naito. First of all, I don't know why he does the thing with the eye. I don't know why when Naito walks to the ring, with one eye, makes it go really wide. I don't know if that's like, my eyes are bigger than yours, or I'm on chemical drugs, are you? Or I have no idea what that whole taunt is. But the Stardust genius himself, Tetsuya Naito, and I think I'd said on this show before, like, he's another one of those guys whose look does not necessarily translate into how amazing he is in the ring. I thought these guys had an unbelievable match.
Yeah. Oh, they did, Ben. I mean, AJ's always good. And again, they presented somebody who you already knew was a star going in. So that if you'd kind of forgotten over the past few matches, you were getting another big North American name, and a guy who can handle himself against anybody on this roster. AJ Styles is such a fantastic performer. But this match in particular, it was strong, it was exciting, it was what you would have expected, and it took it kind of beyond that. So I thought it was fantastic.
And a great job, too, from both commentators, really putting over the Styles Clash as this. I know people might think this is kind of tasteless, and maybe it is, but it's what you've been handed. And I thought it was really an awesome story in the match that the Styles Clash of all moves, which I always used to. This is the funny thing about the Clash, Shan. I always thought that move didn't have a lot of impact and was actually kind of a bit of a weak finish for him.
I always thought it hurt AJ more than it hurt the opponent.
I just thought, how much does it hurt your head to fall from like half a foot or like 2 feet, you know what I mean, onto the mat? Little did I know it would become the most dangerous move in all of wrestling in 2015. And they put this over, that he has broken men's necks in the last year with this move. Yoshitatsu, for instance, it's really weird, and I don't know how to take this, but I have him on Twitter, and he's changed. By the way, he's still in the hospital, folks. Yoshi has not made it out of the hospital yet, and his neck is broken. And he put his Twitter profile picture is his doll, his like WWE doll, in a toy wheelchair with a neck brace on. So I thought that was pretty shocking when I saw that profile picture. I don't know if that's him poking fun at it or if he's kind of going through some dark times right now. But anyway, we all love Yoshi, and we certainly hope he recovers. And I mean, from everything I heard about that, he took full responsibility for that going wrong. But now using it in this match to tell this story of this move, I mean, the bottom line is when he goes for that move, listen to the crowd. They're not like, oh, this might be the end of the match. They're like, oh, this might be the end of Naito. And the finish of that match, and I guarantee you this was something to silence all the people that are saying he needs to stop doing the move. I don't know if it was Naito that suggested it and said, let's show them that this move is safe, or whether it was AJ. But the match ends with a top rope Styles Clash, middle rope Styles Clash, I guess you'd say, on Naito. Perfectly executed, no broken neck, no problem. And again, when he got him in that move, again, Naito goes for the Hurricane Rana from the top. AJ reverses it, holds him. That was when the match just was at its absolute peak because Naito flipped out. Naito's on that second rope being held upside down, and he knows that this could be not the end of the match. This could be the end of his career. This could be the end of his life. Naito's flipping out. He's putting up such a struggle. And in the end, AJ still locks it in, hits the move 1, 2, 3. And again, really cool that they put over the fact that Naito, has kind of choked at the big one. And when you tell that story for a whole match, I think everyone automatically says, okay, well, Naito's winning. Nope. No, they didn't do it. They didn't do it. They put over the fact that he hasn't won at Wrestle Kingdom, and he still didn't win. So this story continues.
Let me ask you before we go any further here. Has AJ broken a lot of necks before this little unfortunate run that came up recently with that move? Because I had never really heard of the Styles Clash as being particularly dangerous for his opponent.
No, and I hadn't either. And from everything I know, I mean, I remember I heard a bit of rumblings that this had happened to another indie guy, not the one that happened last year, but another indie guy, like way back, this happened. But no, it's just become this thing where all of a sudden people are tucking their heads. I mean, I don't understand. And I do understand that, I'm not a wrestler, and I've heard from a lot of people that say it's the instinct when you're going down to tuck your head. That's what you're taught to do on everything, is tuck your head, tuck your head. He's been doing this move for so long, though. Yeah, like it's really quite strange, actually. But definitely Naito and Styles go into this match saying, let's show the people this move is, we can do this totally fine. He doesn't need to stop doing the move. And man, that Styles Clash was awesome, and it was executed absolutely perfectly. And both guys came out like stars, I thought.
Yeah, I mean you can say that over the final three matches of the show. Well, even for most of these, is that there weren't really any losers at this point. Everyone was showing everything they had and coming out looking as good as they possibly could in the situation.
So let's move on to the final two matches here before we get out.
Now let me say I'm thinking you're going to agree with me on this, but match of the night.
If it's not match of the year, we are in for a hell of a 2015. Would you not agree with me that if something tops that in any company, that we are in for a hell of a 2015?
I would have to say. I mean, maybe they can top it themselves. I'm assuming this is gonna be a run, but this was the match. If you had to sit someone down and say, "Hey, have you heard of New Japan Pro Wrestling? Check out this match." This would be the match to show them. From the entrances to the clash of personalities and to the in-ring action, to the numerous false finishes, to the innovative moves pulled out of nowhere, things I've never seen before. This was the match. These were the guys. Nakamura is already a superstar. He came out of it even more so. Kota Ibushi is obviously on the rise and a huge established star now, and he's come further as a result as well. This was the match.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned people on Twitter during the live airing that have never ever watched New Japan before. Who do you think they were talking about at the end of this show? This guy it was unbelievable. And I was looking at the trends, and I mean, it was like they had trending stuff on Twitter like all over the place, but the one wrestler that was trending was Nakamura. And I mean, it was pretty obvious. Matt Stryker flat out said it. This is my favorite wrestler on the planet. I know I'm supposed to be impartial, but this is my favorite wrestler on the planet. And people, again, Chan, me and you have watched this guy now for a bit. We've gotten used to it. Can you imagine if our very first time seeing him was what happened at that show in that entrance? What would you, like it literally, I use this a lot, but I'm going to use it again. It would be like an alien came down in a spaceship and landed in your living room. That's the way you'd be looking at the screen. Because, wow.
This is the guy, this guy's fearless too, because it could so not work. If he wasn't so committed to it, it could so not work. The crazy motions, the crazy faces, the black mouth guard that makes him look just mental. Because it's not sticking out there like Kurt Angle's were, so you can kind of forget he's got it in sometimes. And the crown and the everything. If he was not as committed as he was, it would have been a flop. But my God, that guy just draws you in with every motion and every expression, everything he does.
Like you just took the words out of my mouth, because I don't know if there's anybody else. And I'm not saying this again. I know people are thinking you're pretty biased because you love this product and whatever. I don't know if there's anyone else that controls a crowd with their face the way that he does. That is a skill you can't teach. That is a skill that comes along once in a generation. This guy's facials make the place pop.
Yeah.
Like the one in particular I'm thinking of is the part where early in the match, Kota Ibushi and Matt Stryker, God bless him for putting this over. Kota Ibushi puts him in the corner. I think it's like in the first few minutes. He puts him in the corner, and you know the thing Nakamura does where he digs the boot into the guy's face and does the shaky face? That whole thing?
Yeah.
Kota Ibushi, it was so funny him doing it like he did the Nakamura foot thing where, you shake your mouth. And as soon as he walks away, Nakamura pops up, and just the look on his face, and he does the whole finger thing of, come here. Yeah. The place pops for his fucking face. The entrance, the place is going nuts for like the whole thing. He's kind of reserved until about halfway down. He's like reserved and stoic until about halfway down the ramp. And then he flips out and you hear the crowd just pop even louder. The place is going insane. This guy he has it. And I know that JR said this to the people that, he talked to a lot of people following this pay-per-view. A lot of people involved, a lot of people like Dave, etc., and just sort of relive the experience. But basically what came out of this show was that he loved the product, but that Nakamura could have been a top star in any era, in any country, in any promotion. This guy has it.
You can't say that about a lot of people without sounding verbose.
No,
but when it comes to Nakamura, if you sit them down and you say, yeah, well, watch what I'm talking about, and you actually see the guy, I mean, it doesn't matter even whether you like him. You have to just be completely drawn in by him. You know, he's captivating and then backs it up in the ring.
Well, yeah, and I thought JR did a great job even before he'd made it to the ring, basically explaining, yeah, this guy models himself after Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson, but he's the king of strong style. That means he's a badass. Yeah. And by that point, you're already like, whoa, if you've never heard of this guy or seen him, you're just thinking, okay, so he's not like this isn't comedy then? Like, this guy's going to come in here and kick ass? And my God, did he kick ass. But, you know, it's one thing I think is a bit of a crime on this show is we've reviewed a few different Kota Ibushi matches. One was with Nakamura, and one was with Ricochet. And I think in both cases, it's almost like those guys were sort of overshadowing him in terms of what we were putting over. How good is this Kota Ibushi? Seriously, how good is this guy? Because if Nakamura's the best wrestler in the world, Kota Ibushi is right underneath.
He's got to be number 2. I mean, Kota Ibushi, and he's sort of like, these two together are so great because he's kind of the polar opposite of Nakamura. He's very like handsome, almost cute, like in a almost like a childish way. He's kind of as chiseled, super fast, super charismatic guy, and this other, but at the whole other end of the spectrum. You know, there's nothing funny about him. There's nothing kind of crazy about him. And then in the ring, I mean, that spot where he jumped up on the ropes and did essentially like Cesaro's superplex when he's on the ropes, except he did a back, like a German. It was a German he did, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
While standing on the ropes, lifting him from the apron on the other side and then Germaning him over. It was mental.
Yes, folks, you heard that explanation right. Nakamura on the apron, standing facing the crowd. Kota Ibushi on the top rope facing the crowd. Gets Nakamura in a German suplex hold and German suplexes him backwards from the apron off the top rope into the ring. That move was dangerous. I could not believe that. And if you notice, I don't know if you did, but the cameraman even like flipped out. He like shook for it. Like, whoa, holy crap. But Ibushi is like such a unique performer in the sense, obviously Nakamura is too, but Ibushi, there's a lot of guys out here in the business, in the indie scene and everything like that can do flips, that can do things that will blow your mind. Ricochet, all these guys that can, I mean, Ricochet's a step above everybody else, but as a wrestler, as a total package, is there anybody that can combine the most unbelievable high flying with the most unbelievable technical stuff, with the most unbelievable brawling? This guy, the points in this match where he fired up, that was a Rocky movie. The points where he was getting his ass kicked and he said, you know what, screw this. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of getting my ass kicked. I'm fighting back. And when he did and he fired up, there's nobody better. There's nobody better in the business right now as a babyface to fire up the way he did. I could not believe the brawling, the strikes in that match.
I think one of the most classic moments in this match for me was it was in sort of the waning minutes of the match when we were getting to the point where where they were worn out, they were getting tired. You could see that it was getting really close. Is where they would stand and hit each other with a kick and both at the same time, or hit each other with a punch at the same time, stagger backwards, come back in again, like launch themselves at each other again, bam, hit each other again, fall backwards again. And it was like that, those classic moments in, again, like a Rocky movie or in some kind of boxing movie where, you know, this is a war of attrition and we're just going to keep hitting each other to see which one of us falls down. There was just something so powerful about the way that they did it and the level of impact in it. And it was, you really felt like something massive was happening.
So, yeah, I mean, the funny thing to me was when JR kept saying this young kid, it really played into the match better for him to say this young kid Ibushi. But he openly had said in the beginning that Nakamura's 34 and Kota Ibushi's 32. Yeah. So, this young kid. But anyway,
Ibushi looks so young, though, doesn't he?
He presents this vibe of this young kid. Yeah. And again, some of JR's calls, the emotion, the way that he's able to bring it up when he needs to bring it up. Yeah. He's not a whore about it. He doesn't just give away his excitement. He gives it away at the moment when it needs to be given away, and then he knows when to bring it down again. And he did that throughout this match. The call of when Ibushi, like this is one of the coolest parts of this match, is after he'd been kicked and kicked and kicked and kicked so brutally in the face. And he's finally, Kota Ibushi gets the upper hand, and he's kind of in control. And he just starts not even looking at him. He's looking straight ahead, and he's just doing these nasty kicks right to the face. Boot, boot, boot. Just not even worrying about where the boot lands on his face. And just looking straight ahead the whole time. And then it shows the close-up of Nakamura, and he has big red boot prints all over his head.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal. And again, Nakamura, the greatest wrestler in the world, like the most charismatic man in the world. Kota Ibushi is a completely just a god of professional wrestling in terms of being an amazing technical wrestler, an amazing flyer, and an amazing, amazing brawler. That's something you don't find very often. So anyway, Nakamura, I thought actually Ibushi was going to win the title here. I thought this was where Nakamura, sort of like Ishii, he's going to now be moving up. Like, we're going to get rid of the Intercontinental title. He's held it a whole bunch of times for the last few years. It's time to kind of move back into the heavyweight division. He's so popular. But they did not do it yet, and he retained the title, so now they fought twice, and Nakamura wins both times. So Ibushi coming out like a star, though, and JR making sure he hammered that home.
And here's what I have to say about this match. As much as I enjoyed Tanahashi and Okada, and as good of a match as that was, and you cannot find anything, I don't think, anywhere else recently that would match that for quality except for Nakamura and Ibushi. I think by the time that you were heading into Tanahashi versus Okada, you kind of felt like the show had peaked, because it kind of had to have. I felt a little bit tired going into. Do you know what I mean? And that was certainly nothing wrong with the way it was booked. It was nothing wrong with the performance that went on, because it was a fantastic match on its own. But I almost think that the two last matches should have been switched as far as their order goes. What do you think?
I mean, I agree with you, but it comes back to, first of all, what I've been saying now for a little while, that one of the big drawing things of this show, and it turned out to be the goddamn truth, one of the big drawing things of the show is you have 3 main events, a triple main event show, and any one of them could be match of the night. And you know, like you say with New Japan, they're not going to hold back. So it's really going to be whoever has the best match on this out of these 3 is the best match. And it's not going to be one of those things where the second last match holds out a little bit just so that it doesn't overshadow the main event. It was basically the best is going to shine tonight. And that's what happened. But I mean, the beauty of this show too, in this product, you have so many different flavors. And I really feel like this heavyweight championship match, very similar to a lot of Japanese big time world title matches. It has that part in the middle where you kind of think, it's a little slow. This is all right. I don't mind this. This is okay. And then by the end of it, you know, you're standing and you just are loving it. Like, we've seen a million of these type of IWGP Heavyweight Championship matches, and they always tend to have that part in the middle where it's slow and plodding, and then by the end of it, you're just losing your mind. And I thought this was exactly that. This was the modern day, and I tweeted this actually live while I was watching it. This is the modern day Shawn versus Brett in terms of two craft masters at the top of their game, 2 different generations, you know, just slightly like one generation, and then Okada's the generation behind. And he's coming up, and he's going to be the future of this company. He already has held this title. He's already been on top, but he's never been given the John Cena position. It's a lot like the Bryan and Punk thing. It's like they've been on top. Both Bryan and Punk have been on top. They're both huge stars, but they've never been given the spot. And that's exactly what you have right here. And again, it was like that Shawn versus Brett professional wrestling match. This was a lot more of a North American style professional wrestling match. So again, it's almost like if you'd watch this out of order, or if you just kind of watch this match one time and watch the other one the other time, you just think they were both unbelievable. But yeah, you're right. Like, the fact that they had to follow Ibushi Nakamura, that wasn't going to happen. But you know what? I thought they did great. I thought it was a great match, and pretty much everyone I've talked to has said the same. Those last 2 matches were both top-notch wrestling matches. And that dive from Tanahashi with his bad back, with his bad neck, this guy has been beaten for 10 years. And that dive over the railing into that weird part, too. And the thing about the floor, it's not even level. You know what I mean? You have that one dip in the floor. And Okada just caught him perfectly. And, man, I mean, we haven't, again, spoken much about Okada on the show very often, but I think everybody saw what he's made of. And, man, what a performer at the end. I don't even know if that was acting or if that was real. But he's
that was something I felt too. You know, exactly. With the tears streaming down his face, and he looked
crying. He was a broken man. Yeah. And the way that Gato, who again is the booker of New Japan, he's the lead booker, and Jado, they were both in ECW, you know, near the end of ECW, Jado and Gato. But nowadays, I mean, Gato's the booker, and Jado is kind of like the assistant booker. So they're 2 best friends, much like Goto and Shibata, you know, 2 best friends from high school, and now they're running this company as the bookers. But you know, the way that he's walking to the back, and he's got legitimate tears streaming out of his face. He's put so much of himself into preparing for this match, and like so much of his heart and soul into preparing, and he just wanted to win that title. He wanted to show everybody, you know, he's the man. And at the end of the day, you know, these 2 now are tied 3-3 in their big time world heavyweight title series. And they also had 1 draw. So now it's 3-3 Tanahashi tied it up, and they have one draw as well. But Okada crying, and Gedo, the way that Gedo was standing beside him, and he wasn't flipping out, he wasn't stomping around, being all animated. He had this look like you would have if your friend just found out his mother died. Like, he was just standing beside him. He's like, he didn't want to say too much. He just kind of had that look that he was looking on him like, I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff you don't get in wrestling, period, ever. And they did it. What a performance by Okada. What a performance by Tanahashi. This guy has still got it. And again, hard to follow that Ibushi match and the Nakamura match, but I thought it was still one hell of a world title main event. And like you say, I don't know if you could find a main event, a world title main event on any show that was really better than that.
Oh, yeah. And, everything, it's funny, because there is this sense that the Japanese audience is more reserved. Right? We always get that kind of sense. But when you saw the level of real emotion that was presented in the show, I was really shocked by it. It really drew you further into the product. You don't get that very often in WWE. You always have a sense that it's put on. You know what I mean? But with this, you really got the sense that everyone had thrown so much of themselves into it that all the emotion was real. And not just the people that were breaking down and crying, but the people who were celebrating. And this was a situation where we'd love to have heard what the different winners had said during their interviews, because it was so tied to the emotion of the moment. But hopefully they'll have something like that going.
Yeah, there is a site, and I just can't think of it off the top. They mentioned it actually on the pay-per-view, which I thought was cool too. Stryker putting over podcasts and stuff, and Stryker putting over websites that have translations. Essentially, what Tanahashi said to Okada when he was walking down the aisle was that this title is still so far away from you.
Yeah.
So Tanahashi kind of rubbing it in a little bit. Which
I thought was kind of a dick move, considering.
Yeah. And he plays the dick a little bit now and then. But it just adds to the magic. And again, this is like John Cena, because for God's sakes, Tanahashi has won a lot of world title matches at a lot of Wrestle Kingdoms. So this is like John Cena after, now essentially, winning the main event at WrestleMania. How do you think the fans would react to the show going off the air with John Cena in the ring celebrating? And then you compare that to what happened with Tanahashi, because the fans love him still. They still love him. They aren't tired of him. As much as they might have wanted Okada to win, and they might be ready for this next generation to take over, they still love the guy, and they're not upset that he won the title. And it's one of those things, too. In WWE, you always know in the back of your head, Vince at any time can screw this up. Vince at any time can say, yeah, the fans want this, but fuck them. And you never see that in New Japan. Okada's going to get his time. He's going to be the next Tanahashi. Nakamura's only 34. He's still going to be at the very top. Neither of these guys are going anywhere. Kota Ibushi is going to be a star, folks. Naito has never won the big one, but he's going to. You're not going to get screwed on this. And even with Hanma, they've realized that the fans love this guy, so they give him this win at this show. It's like they're giving the people what they want. Gedo is not afraid to give the fans what they want. And, man, everybody, the reaction to that show, and I actually just sort of logged into Twitter during the replay, which is when you watch the show. One thing I have to ask you about the replay is, did it go on really long at the end, too? Like, after they'd signed off, did the camera stay on in the building and all that, like the way it did when I watched it live, or did it wrap up right as JR said goodnight, everyone?
Well, I mean, honestly, I didn't stick around long after that. This is a show I want to watch over and over again, so I did stop it. I don't know how much longer it went.
Okay, yeah, like you just figured the show's over as well. That's what I did too, and I actually got up, and then I realized I came back, and I was like, oh my god, it's still they still have a live feed here, and they're just kind of in the building, and Tanahashi's still just talking to fans and taking pictures and shit. This is awesome. But anyway, we can sign out of here. We've been going now for over an hour, but my god, man, this is one that will live forever. There's at least I would say four-star matches, possibly I would say a 5-star match with Nakamura. I don't think you'll find a pay-per-view anytime soon that will have this many good matches, be this unique, have this many different flavors, this many different styles. Great production value. Anything else you want to say before we get out? Because I think we pretty much said it all, man.
Here's what I'd say. If this show does not open a huge door for New Japan in North America, I don't know what can, because you couldn't have had a better show and you couldn't have put more effort into it. So obviously from the buzz, I think they're going to be at least, improving their exposure. My hope is that it blows the door wide open for them.
One thing I'll say too before we sign off, I mean, this is basically the next step here in North America is, and Access Television, and I don't mean just like, your local community cable. I mean the television station, Access TV, is a Mark Cuban-owned station. And in just like a week or so, they're going to be starting this series like I've talked about, where it will be showing the best matches of 2013 and 2014 with commentary by Mauro Ranallo and Josh Barnett. And this is going to be starting on Access TV. And Mark Cuban has said for a long time he wanted to get in the wrestling business. He wanted to start his own promotion. He wanted to compete with Vince McMahon. To me, looking at that show that we just saw, looking at the matches that are going to be on this best of, this really could be something where Mark Cuban has found that product. I mean, you couldn't find anything else under your banner. And New Japan, I'm sure, after how flawless this thing went. I know there were some problems with the flip app, but I mean, for the pay-per-view, it was no problem, nothing. And, I think New Japan's definitely interested in blowing the door of North America wide open, and Mark Cuban may play a big part in that. And before we get out of here, one last thing. Props to Jeff Jarrett, right?
Oh, yeah.
For getting this thing done.
And getting it done right.
Getting this thing done right. And people might have thought that, Jarrett politicked his way into that match. Jarrett actually didn't even want to wrestle. That was like a gratitude thing, and that's something in Japan that exists a lot. They felt that they wanted to give him the opportunity to perform because it was gratitude for what he'd done, gratitude for having the passion to get this thing done. He got Wrestle Kingdom on pay-per-view in North America, Shan. We saw it with our own eyes. And again, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Scott D'Amore. Thank you, Jim Ross. Thank you, Matt Stryker. Thank you, everybody that was involved in giving us that opportunity. It will be one that we, as Shan says, we will watch many times again, I'm sure. So anyway, signing off here from myself and Shotgun Shan. You have a great weekend. I know we're still feeling the buzz. Again, don't watch Raw, everybody. Period. Don't watch it. Daniel Bryan's not going to win, so don't even start getting hopeful.
Yeah.
Anyway, and thanks, Shan, for being here. And again, hope you enjoy watching this show when you do sit down and check it out again.
And thanks, buddy, for opening this up to me, opening me up to this when you did, because I was glad that I'd done the legwork and gotten interested in the product before watching this.
Yeah.
And it was just, I think the change is in the air. Let's say that for 2015. Changes in the air.
I'll tell you this, assuming that this thing translates into the buys that the excitement was, there will be more. There will be more this year, maybe as early as April with Invasion Attack, and definitely, if this thing goes well, you will be getting the finals of the G1 Climax on pay-per-view as well. So this will not be the end, but again, folks, if you haven't seen it, go order the replay. Even if you checked it out at your buddy's house, go and order it again. Order the replay now. Get it on your own DVR. Do anything you can to support this company. It's $35, folks, and it's well worth it to make sure we get more of this. So thank you, Shan. Have a great day, my friend.
You too, buddy.